Cool. So hey there, folks. Hope you all are having fun. Got your food, got your drinks, good stuff. So welcome to the first .Bay area meetup. Let's talk dot files. You all have them, it seems like, right? Anyone not have a dot files repository? Yeah. Okay. We got a few that don't. Awesome. Great. This is for you. It's also for all the rest of you. Probably what I'm going to do here is talk a little bit about how you set up your dot files, how you set up a repo, how you share it, what some options are, and then probably we'll just kind of veer off into the weeds at some point near the end. That tends to be how things go. So I keep all my dot files in a version controlled directory on GitHub. If you go to github.com/hrs/dotfiles, you'll find a big repository full of, well, mostly Emacs stuff, but there's some other stuff in there too. So what I've done here is I've created a user on my computer called Other Harry, and I'm going to set up his whole system for him. I'm normal Harry, this is Other Harry. So if I do an ls-la here, well, let me go into my home directory here, ls-la, you'll see that I have clone my .files directory from GitHub. I also added a netrc in here. We'll talk about that stuff later. Yeah, how's that? Maybe a little more embiggen? Yeah, good. So first of all, let me talk a little bit about the purpose of having a .files directory. You can have all these files just on your computer, obviously, but having them in a version-controlled repository is super convenient. Every time I switch jobs, which is a little too often lately, I need to set up a new machine. And part of that involves setting up all my .files. Now, back in the day, I used to migrate those over one at a time using SCP or some other complicated nonsense, and I always forgot half of them. Then I'd be working and I'd get lost and I'd not be able to look inside a file or something like that. So I set up this repository here where I've got them all, and it's very convenient. Downloading and installing my .files is a one-line command, which is really cool. Well, I guess two, one to clone, one to run. The other big advantage of sharing your .files is that you can share your .files with other people. If you put them up on GitHub or Bitbucket or whatever you're into, people will I've got like 60 of my .files. I don't know what they're doing with them. It is a deeply personal enterprise, right? Like you set up your .files and they're for you, but people are forking them and they like them. And presumably they're getting some kind of value out of having them up. And I like that. It's good. So there's good reasons. Now, if we look in here, I have a number of directories for things like Bash, Emacs, email, Firefox. I've also got a couple scripts. I've got this install script, which installs the .files. I've got a couple other ones too. I'm on Linux, as we saw from the library, and I use a particular distro called Debian. I have a whole bunch of other installation stuff in here. So if we look inside Debian packages, why am I using ls to look in a file? Goodness gracious. Oh, I'm in, There we go. I'm installing all kinds of stuff here. This is another great use for a .files repository is having a couple of packages that you need installed. Obviously, if you're on a Mac, you can do the same thing with Homebrew. But I could never remember all these. I can remember like 3 of them. So it's really convenient having them all set up in an installation script. So when I actually do the installation, I have this script here, which is install.sh. And what this does is it runs that Debian packages one that installs all of the dependencies that I need for everything. That includes my email client and my window manager, you name it, just everything that isn't in the base Debian install. I think sudo is included in it. Debian's pretty stripped down. And then I've got this series of stow commands. is a GNU tool. I'm not sure what it stands for. It's just for stowing things. Like all GNU tools, it has very complete documentation, which is also profoundly unhelpful for the person trying to get started. Stow brands itself as a, quote, link farm manager. I do not know what that means, and I have used it for 6 years. What Stow does, well, Stow apparently does 1,000 things. If you look at the man page, it's terrifying. And the info page, because of course it does both. But if you look at it, what Stow does, as I use it, is you give it a directory, and it will look inside that directory and create a symlink from your home directory to every file in that directory. So if I am in my .files here, and I run stow git, first of all, let's look in git here. I have a .git config, a .git ignore, a .git message, and this stow local ignore, I'll talk about that in a second. But if I run stow git, and then if I look in my home directory, let me get that up the top there. You'll note that I now have the symlink. Git config, git ignore, git message, and they all symlink in my .files. Cool so far? I'm pretty sure you can give stow all kinds of flags to clone into different places other than your home directory, but for purposes of .files, who cares? It's a pretty cool tool. So as you saw in my install, I use stow for all these different directories, and that sets up all the symlinks for me. Super convenient. A thing that you need to do with stow, stow will, left to its own devices, ignore certain kinds of files. Like, for example, if we look in our git config, it will ignore git ignore, which seems reasonable. You would want a thing that creates links to ignore git ignore. But unfortunately, can I list that again? I can. So what I have told it to do here is to not ignore git ignore. So stow uses the same basic syntax as git does. So your git ignore, right, is a list of files or patterns for files that you don't want git to manage under version control. In the same way, this file, stow local ignore, gives you a list of patterns that you can exclude from stow, right? Like maybe if I had a README in here, I wouldn't want that symlink to do a README in my home directory. That'd be kind of crazy. However, the flip side here is that I do want to link my git ignore, so I need this little caret. Is it right? Sure looks like it, doesn't it? That's a good question. Is this a regular expression? This is a regular expression. I'm not sure that it's being interpreted as a regular expression, but that does seem reasonable, doesn't it? Yeah. What's that? Oh, yeah, that's true. It does, doesn't it? Oh, man. What's this thing doing, do you think? So I promised that there's a very comprehensive man page. And let's see here. So if we, oh yeah, see, they're all stow directory, they're installation images. I don't know what an image. Package directories are my home directory is a package. Oh, you're welcome. I'm glad I could be of such help. Can you tell me? Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. It is a little bit. I think what you mean actually is UX, though. Sure, happy to. Yeah, so I'm feigning a certain amount of ignorance here because it's funnier to watch and humble around. Um, but but the larger purpose of stow is to handle um, installing packages in places where so if you have a particular version of Perl, for example, that you want to install, you might use stow to symlink the appropriate executables in the appropriate place. You could also use stow, different versions of Perl, and you want to be able to swap between them. You could use stow to do that, right? So that would be an example of a use for it. Yeah. Oh, sure. Yeah, sure. Homebrew on a Mac does a similar thing. There are also tools for interpreters for languages where you have multiple versions of the interpreter installed. For example, if you use Ruby and use Cheruby, what you're really doing is moving around a symlink. And I mean, I know that's not literally true, but it's truthy. That's true. Well, is that true for Cheruby? Interesting. Okay, we need to have a long conversation. Um, yeah. That might be a better comparison. Sure. So in any case, this is stow. This is its purpose. Um, yeah, you can use it to install things in all kinds of different ways, but for the purposes of dot files, really all we need is this one-liner. The beauty of using stow this way, first of all, is that I don't have to write an install script that creates 1,000 symlinks. That is tedious, and while I have done that in the past, I have invariably forgotten one and been mystified later on. So I recommend against that. I see. Yeah. So I did list all the manuals, all the, sure. Yeah, good point. Um, if we look at my install.se, it did list all the stow directories. That's true. That is better than listing literally every file, though. I totally could. Um, in practice, I don't add categories too often of these, right? Like I've got one for my RSS reader because I use a command line terminal for RSS because I'm a grumpy old man. It's the best. Newsboat, really recommended. Um, but I rarely add and remove things like that. So in practice, this is happening around for me. Definitely we use stow and write a nice little, nice little lines of hash or whatever to do that for us. Yeah. Oh, yes. Oh, are there ever options? So your first option, yeah. Oh, sure. Are there options? I'm sorry, I forget every time. Sure. So the question is, are there other alternatives to stow? The answer is that there are 1,000 ways to do your dot. So in the obvious way, you use no tool at all and have an install script with a whole bunch of symlinks. There are many alternatives to stow. Thoughtbot makes one called RCM, which is quite good. It's a little heavier weight than stow. It doesn't do symlinking. It has some tagging features and stuff. There are a bunch of ones that I've never used, like Homesick. And there's another one that I checked out. Oh my gosh, what's it called? Dotbot. And Dotbot, you give it a whole bunch of YAML configuration. It looks like a nightmare to me, but it does look very fully featured, which is not really something I need in creating a few symlinks, but is quite cool. So there are many options there. Another option that's a little more off the beaten path that I've seen people use is to just version their home directory, which is sounds really terrifying. But if you're pretty aggressive with your git ignore in there, you can do it okay. That's kind of weird, but it's essentially the same thing, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh, like setting an alias for every command and sure. Yeah, I guess if you just put like, my newsboat home directory is in my, yeah, I guess I could do that. I'd have to do that for every different application though. And if I had two applications that read the same file, one might work and one might not. I think I'd get confused and scared pretty much immediately. I need very simple tools. Um, so yeah, let's see. Are there any other alternatives? Those are pretty much the ones that I've seen. Um, the version home directory is something that seems really cool to me, but that I have not done. Do one day. So what other questions do you have about stow dotfiles in general? I'm going to talk a little bit more later on about security and handling credentials, but yeah. My shell of choice. As part of a lazy person with a GNU bent, I use Bash. It's fine. My real shell of choice is Emacs because I'm that guy, but Bash is pretty okay too. Cool. Yeah. It's this complete list. Mm. I adhere to pain-driven development. So once it hurts that it isn't in there, I'll move it in. Yeah. So let's see. Firefox is a fairly recent addition, by which I mean a year or two ago when I committed a Vimperator RC, which Vimperator, rest in peace. So really, it's completely dead code now. But such life of a dotfiles repo. Let's see. Another weird thing I do there is I link bash RC in there. I find that I use login shells and regular shells the same way. Not technically correct, but in practice, for me. I know. It doesn't cost me pain. In which case it's okay. So yeah, we're talking about things that I don't have in here. And a big category of things that I don't have in here is credentials. So I use a crazy, terminal-based email client. I use all kinds of wacky tools. They all have passwords. I don't keep my passwords in files for sort of obvious reasons, right? What I do instead is I use .rc. I have here a .netrc file, which has been cleansed for your eyes. netrc is an old format. The format is each line of text is a credential for a machine. So you start off with machine and then an address, login, a login name, password, and then your password. And that's all a netrc file is. It's very simple. There are a bunch of tools that can parse it. In my .files, I have a tool creatively named netrc, where you give it a machine name and either flag login or password, and it'll give you the appropriate credential. That makes it easy for me to script tools that do things like when I'm in my feed reader, I can hit a key to send the article to Instapaper through the API, which is kind of convenient. So in netrc, yeah. No, not for me. Sure. Has it ever been a problem for me that the code on my computer has all the same access to my credentials? And it has not. If you've got a netrc file, you should definitely change the permissions to 100 or so to make sure that no other users can read or write it. That's a good idea. If you are more paranoid, there are many alternatives to a netrc. One thing that you can do if you use PGP is you can use a .netrc.gpg file, which is encrypted. That means that you need to encrypt your PGP password every time you want to access your credentials, but that may be okay. You could also, if you wanted to, there's a utility called Pass. Has anyone heard of Pass? It bills itself as a standard Unix password manager. Okay, if you guys heard a dotfiles meetup, you're gonna love Pass. It's great. It's a command line password manager. It's built on standard Unix tools like tree and get and pwgen, generating passwords, and it uses GPG for the crypto. And it is delightful. It is super. It's you store all your passwords in plain files. It's nice. It's fun. I would probably like it. So Pass is another great solution. All of your passwords are also then in a Git directory, so you can. Caleb, a former colleague of ours from ThoughtBot, keeps all of his passwords in GitHub because they are encrypted, and he has the private. So that's kind of a cute thing to do. That scares me, but you know, whatever. So let's see. What other questions do you have? Yeah. I have at times used both. Right now, I use one called, oh yeah, oh boy, oh gosh, I'm sorry. Yeah, no, you're right to do it. Sure, so the question was about my email client. I mentioned that I use a shell-based one. I do, I use one called Mutt. Mutt is based in the terminal. It uses a curses interface, so it's, it's kind of got like boxes and windows and stuff. It's all keyboard driven. And you can write your messages with your text editor of choice, which is a lot nicer than Gmail. So I'm a fan of Mutt. I've also used Emacs-based mail systems in the past. MU4E is my preference for that. But there are a lot of options. Email is just plain text. There's a lot of ways to handle plain text. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, sure. Examples of things in my dotfiles. Oh, there's all kinds of crazy stuff. Oh, I don't know where to start though. That's so outside the scope, and I don't want to get too into scope. What's that? My get prompt. Sure. So my prompt is if we were to look at my regular prompt, it just looks like this, which is super boring. But that is in my under bash. And I use a .bashrc.d directory so that I can keep my different, bash config files in different files. And if we look in there, one of them is prompt. So if we look at prompt.bash, yeah, I don't do anything special. I have a little bit of stuff to show them my current Git state. And then I have those crazy \033 square bracket stuff, which makes it a pretty color because we use a terminal from 1974. So that's an example of kind of a cute thing. Let's see, lots of other crazy stuff in there. It's up on GitHub. If you want to check it out, hrs/dotfiles. It's a tangled mess. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm. Sure. So how do I handle working on machines that don't have my config set up? The short answer is that I do surprisingly rarely, so it's not really that big of a problem. Another thing that I do is I'm a pretty heavy Emacs user, and Emacs has a mode called tramp mode, which lets you edit files with SSH. So I never have to like SSH in and then fire up Vim and then go, oh darn, they don't have my plugins. I'm just in the same Emacs editing experience I always am just doing code processing. So everything's always moving. Yeah.
Thanks very much, Harry.
Yeah. Thanks, folks.